November 18th, 1978. A remote jungle in South America becomes a graveyard. 909 bodies lie scattered across a compound, mothers clutching children, entire families dead in each other's arms. The biggest mass murder-suicide in modern history happens in a single afternoon. But here's what nobody tells you. Most of these people didn't choose to die. They were murdered, forced at gunpoint to drink poison, while their children died first. The man who orchestrated it all? A charismatic preacher named Jim Jones, who convinced nearly 1,000 Americans to follow him to paradise. Instead, he led them straight into hell. And the most disturbing part? This could have been stopped. Warning signs appeared for years. People tried to escape. Families begged for help. By the time someone listened, it was already too late. What you're about to hear will make you question everything you thought you knew about Jonestown. Because the truth is so much darker than the history books tell you. Let's go back to 1977. Deep in the jungles of Guyana, a small South American country, an American religious community carves out a settlement from the dense rainforest. They call it Jonestown, named after their leader Jim Jones. To the outside world, it looks like a socialist paradise, a place where racial equality isn't just preached but practiced, where everyone works together, shares everything, and lives in harmony. Brochures show smiling families, children playing, people working in gardens under tropical sun. Nearly 1,000 Americans sell everything they own to move there. They give up their homes, their jobs, their life savings. They believe they're building something revolutionary, a community free from racism, capitalism, and the corruption of American society. But Jonestown isn't paradise. It's a prison disguised as utopia. Behind the carefully staged photos and cheerful letters home, something sinister grows. Armed guards patrol the perimeter. Loudspeakers blast Jim Jones's voice day and night. Nobody can leave without permission, and that permission never comes. The year 1978 marks a turning point in American consciousness. The Cold War still grips the world. Nuclear anxiety runs high. Many Americans distrust their government after Watergate and Vietnam. Into this atmosphere of fear and uncertainty, cult leaders thrive. They offer certainty, community, and purpose. Jim Jones understands this perfectly. He exploits every fear, every doubt, every desperate need for belonging. He tells his followers that America is doomed, that nuclear war approaches, that only by following him can they survive. And for a while, people believe him. They believe him enough to move to the jungle. They believe him enough to give up everything. And on November 18th, 1978, some believe him enough to die, but most don't believe. Most are murdered. And that's where our story really begins. James Warren Jones is born on May 13th, 1931, in rural Indiana. His childhood shapes everything that follows. His father is a disabled World War I veteran with Ku Klux Klan sympathies. His mother works long hours and largely ignores him. Young Jim grows up isolated, strange, and obsessed with death. Neighbors remember disturbing behavior. He conducts elaborate funeral services for dead animals. He preaches to other children, demanding they listen. When they refuse, he becomes violent. One childhood friend later recalls Jim holding a knife to his throat, forcing him to attend one of these bizarre rituals. But Jim also shows genuine intelligence and charisma. He reads voraciously, studies religion, philosophy, and politics. By his teenage years, he's preaching at local churches. People notice his magnetic speaking ability. Even when he says outrageous things, people listen. In 1955, at just 24 years old, Jones founds his own church in Indianapolis. He calls it the People's Temple. His message is revolutionary for 1950s America. Complete racial integration. Black and white families worshiping together. Helping the poor regardless of race. In segregated Indiana, this message attracts both devoted followers and violent opposition. The Ku Klux Klan threatens Jones. Someone throws dynamite at his house. But the persecution only strengthens his followers' devotion. They see him as a martyr willing to suffer for justice. Jones uses this devotion ruthlessly. He stages fake healings, planting people in the audience who miraculously recover from cancer. He claims to have supernatural powers. He tells followers he's been Lenin and Jesus Christ in past lives. The more outrageous his claims, the more fanatically devoted his inner circle becomes. By the late 1960s, Jones moves his congregation to California, first to Redwood Valley, then to San Francisco and Los Angeles. Membership explodes. Thousands join. The People's Temple becomes a political force. Jones delivers his congregation to vote for sympathetic politicians. In return, those politicians protect him from criticism, but cracks appear in the facade. Former members tell horrifying stories. Physical beatings during services, sleep deprivation, forced confessions of imaginary sins. Jones demands members sign blank power of attorney documents, giving him control over their property and even their children. When journalists start investigating, Jones makes a decision. He'll move his entire operation somewhere beyond the reach of American law, somewhere isolated, somewhere he can exercise complete control. He chooses Guyana. He leases land from the government and begins construction of what he calls an agricultural mission. In reality, he's building a prison, and he's about to fill it with nearly 1,000 people who trust him completely. In 1977, the migration begins. Hundreds of People's Temple members board planes to South America. Most have no idea what awaits them. They believe they're going to paradise. Instead, they're walking into a trap that will close behind them with no escape. Before we go further into this nightmare, I want to know, had you heard about Jonestown before watching this video? Drop a comment and let me know. And if you're already finding this disturbing, trust me, it gets so much worse. Stick around. Life in Jonestown quickly becomes unbearable. People work 11-hour days in brutal tropical heat. They clear jungle, plant crops, and build structures. The work is exhausting and never-ending. And despite all this agricultural labor, food remains scarce. Meals consist of rice and gravy, sometimes beans, rarely any protein. People lose dramatic amounts of weight. Children show signs of malnutrition. When someone complains, Jones calls them ungrateful and bourgeois. Jim Jones's voice dominates every moment. Loudspeakers throughout the compound broadcast his rambling sermons. They play all day while people work. They play all night while people try to sleep. There's no escape from his voice. Even in dreams, people hear Jim Jones talking. He preaches about enemies. The CIA is coming. Mercenaries are planning to attack. Capitalist forces want to destroy their socialist paradise. The only safety lies in absolute obedience to him. Question nothing. Trust only him. Anyone who doubts is a traitor. Armed guards patrol the settlement's perimeter. They're called the Red Brigade. They carry weapons and have orders to prevent anyone from leaving. Not that escape is easy. Jonestown sits miles from any town. The jungle itself forms a nearly impassable barrier. Poisonous snakes, jaguars, and hostile terrain await anyone foolish enough to run. Jones controls all communication with the outside world. He confiscates passports. Letters home are written under supervision or dictated entirely by Jones's lieutenants. When families in America read cheerful letters describing paradise, they have no idea those letters are lies. Then come the White Nights. These practice runs for death start in early 1978. Jones wakes everyone in the middle of the night. Sirens blare. Guards run through the compound shouting that enemies are attacking. Everyone must report to the central pavilion immediately. They are under harsh lights. Jones stands with a vat of liquid. He tells everyone it's poisoned. He says mercenaries are coming to torture them, to take their children. The only dignified response is revolutionary suicide. Death on their own terms rather than capture. Guards hand out cups. Parents take them with shaking hands. Some people cry. Others appear numb, resigned. Children sense the terror and scream. Jones's voice booms over the loudspeakers, commanding everyone to drink, to prove their loyalty, to show they love the cause more than their own lives. People drink. Parents force their children to drink. Then they wait to die. The crying continues. People collapse from panic attacks. Some pray. Others stare blankly ahead. Minutes pass. Nothing happens. Then Jones laughs. "It was a test," he announces. "Just a loyalty test. You passed. The poison wasn't real." This time, this happens again. And again, Jones is conditioning them, training them for what he knows is coming. Each time, he reinforces that death is preferable to the outside world, that revolutionary suicide is noble, that when the time comes, they must not hesitate. Meanwhile, back in America, families grow desperate. Letters from loved ones in Jonestown have stopped or seem wrong. Forced, concerned relatives band together. They form an organization. They contact the media. They contact Congress. One politician listens. Congressman Leo Ryan from California. Ryan has a reputation for bold action. He once went undercover in Folsom Prison to investigate conditions. He personally intervened to stop a hijacking at the San Francisco airport. When concerned relatives tell him about Jonestown, he decides to investigate personally. In November 1978, Ryan organizes a delegation. He brings several congressional aides, journalists from major newspapers, an NBC camera crew, and some of the concerned relatives. On November 14th, they arrive in Guyana. After some tense negotiations with the Guyanese government and Jones himself, they receive permission to visit Jonestown. Think about this for a second. If you were trapped in Jonestown and a congressman showed up with journalists, what would you do? Would you risk asking for help, knowing Jones's guard are watching? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. November 17th, 1978. Congressman Ryan's delegation arrives at Jonestown. Jim Jones puts on an elaborate show. The pavilion is decorated. Music plays. A feast is prepared, far better than what residents normally eat. People smile and dance. Everything appears perfect, but it's all theater. Jones has coached people on what to say. Guards watch every interaction. Anyone who speaks honestly to the visitors risks brutal punishment later. The facade is elaborate but fragile, and it starts to crack almost immediately. That evening, during a talent show, someone slips a note to NBC journalist Don Harris. The note, carefully folded to avoid detection, contains a desperate message. Several people want to leave with Ryan. They need help escaping. More notes follow. The reporters try to conceal their shock and continue smiling. The next morning, November 18th, things unravel fast. People openly approach Ryan and his staff, begging to leave. Despite threats and intimidation from Jones's loyalists, 16 people declare they want to defect. Some are entire families. Others are individuals who've waited months or years for this chance. Jones is furious, but can't stop them without revealing the truth about Jonestown to the watching journalists. He puts on a show of hurt feelings. He claims these people are traitors and ingrates, but he can't physically prevent them from boarding the truck to the airstrip. Around 3 p.m., the defectors, Ryan's delegation, and the journalists leave Jonestown. They take a dump truck and a tractor trailer to the Port Kaituma airstrip 7 miles away. 2 small planes wait there. Everyone feels tense but relieved. They've made it out, but Jim Jones isn't finished. He sent a hit squad to follow them. As people begin boarding the planes around 4:30 p.m., a tractor appears. On the back are armed men from Jonestown, Jones's most fanatical followers. They've come to make sure nobody escapes to tell the truth. What happens next is captured on film. NBC cameraman Bob Brown keeps filming even as the shooting starts. His footage shows people running, diving for cover, bullets ripping through the aircraft, screaming and chaos. Congressman Leo Ryan is shot more than 20 times. He dies on the airstrip. NBC journalist Don Harris, newspaper photographer Greg Robinson, and cameraman Bob Brown are all killed. One of the defectors, Patricia Parks, is also murdered. 11 others are wounded, some critically. Among the survivors is congressional aide Jackie Spear. She shot 5 times but survives by lying motionless among the bodies, pretending to be dead until the shooters leave. She'll later become a congresswoman herself, carrying the physical and emotional scars of this day for the rest of her life. Back in Jonestown, Jim Jones knows it's over. He's just ordered the murder of a United States congressman. There's no coming back from this. Within hours, the Guyanese military will arrive. He'll be arrested, put on trial, exposed as a fraud and murderer. He makes his final decision. If he can't have his paradise, nobody can. He calls everyone to pavilion. Over 900 people gather. Guards carrying rifles and crossbows take positions around the perimeter. Anyone who tries to leave will be shot. Jones's voice, recorded on tape that still exists today, remains eerily calm. "It's time," he says. "Time for revolutionary suicide. We'd rather die with dignity than be tortured by our enemies." A large metal vat has been prepared. Inside is Flavor Aid, a cheap Kool-Aid knockoff, mixed with cyanide, Valium, Phenergan, and chloral hydrate. Enough poison to kill everyone several times over. A Houston doctor who joined the temple, Larry Schacht, prepared the mixture. What happens next is mass murder disguised as mass suicide. The babies and youngest children go first. They can't drink voluntarily, so nurses use syringes to squirt poison directly into their mouths. Parents watch their children convulse and die in their arms. The children's screams echo through the compound. Then the adults line up. Some go willingly, conditioned by months of white nights. Others are forced at gunpoint. Anyone who resists is held down and injected. The poison works quickly but not peacefully. Cyanide causes violent seizures, vomiting, and respiratory failure. Death comes within 5 to 20 minutes of agony. For decades, people have debated what really happened at Jonestown. Was it mass suicide or mass murder? Let's examine the evidence for different theories. Theory 1. Revolutionary mass suicide. This is how Jim Jones framed it in his final speech. He claimed people willingly chose death over capture, that they were revolutionaries making a political statement. That was a dignified end, preferable to being destroyed by their enemies. Some evidence supports this. The death tape captures people applauding Jones's decision. Several loyalists can be heard agreeing with him, saying they'd rather die than return to America. For Jones's most devoted followers, perhaps death genuinely seemed preferable. They'd been conditioned through repeated white nights. They believed the world outside Jonestown was evil and corrupt. But this theory crumbles under closer examination because the children had no choice. Over 300 children died at Jonestown. Babies and toddlers can't make revolutionary decisions. They were murdered, plain and simple. Theory 2. Mass murder disguised as suicide. This theory, supported by most historians and forensic evidence, argues it was primarily murder. Yes, some adults drank willingly, but many were forced. Autopsies revealed over 70 people had injection marks, suggesting they were injected against their will. Survivors who escaped into the jungle reported seeing armed guards forcing people to drink. People who tried to run were shot. The entire compound was surrounded. This wasn't suicide. It was a massacre. Dr. C. Leslie Mutu, Guyana's chief medical examiner, examined the first bodies. He noted injection marks between shoulder blades, places people couldn't reach themselves. His conclusion was clear. Many victims were murdered. Theory 3. CIA involvement and mind control. This controversial theory emerged almost immediately after Jonestown. Some claim it was a CIA mind control experiment gone wrong. That Jones worked for intelligence agencies. That Jonestown was a test of mass manipulation techniques. Proponents point to suspicious details. Jones had connections to unusual figures. The settlement had sophisticated communication equipment. The body count changed multiple times, with authorities initially reporting 408 dead, then discovering bodies had been stacked on top of each other. Some claim this indicates a cover-up. Declassified documents show the CIA was aware of Jones and the People's Temple, but awareness doesn't equal involvement. The simpler explanation fits the facts better. Jones was a paranoid narcissist with absolute power over isolated victims. No CIA conspiracy is needed to explain that. Theory 4. Forced compliance through fear. Perhaps the most accurate theory combines elements of the others. Some people drank willingly after months of psychological conditioning. Others were forced physically. Still others were so terrified of Jones and his guards that submission seemed like the only option. This theory recognizes in extreme situations the line between suicide and murder blurs. When armed guards surround you, when your children are already dying, when you've been sleep-deprived and malnourished for months, can you really make a free choice? Most experts say no. What happened at Jonestown was murder, even when victims technically drank the poison themselves. Which theory makes the most sense to you? Comment 1 for revolutionary suicide, 2 for mass murder, 3 for CIA conspiracy, or 4 for forced compliance through fear. Let me know what you think. November 19, 1978. Guyanese military troops reach Jonestown. They find a scene beyond comprehension. Bodies everywhere. The sweet, sickening smell of decomposition already heavy in the tropical heat. Over 900 people dead. Entire families lying together. The largest mass death of American civilians until September 11, 2001. The body count initially confuses investigators. They report around 400 dead. Then they realize bodies are stacked 3 and 4 deep in places. People died holding each other, creating piles. The final count reaches 909, including Jim Jones himself. Jones died from a gunshot wound to his head. Whether he shot himself or someone else killed him remains uncertain. Either way, he escaped accountability for his crimes. He'll never face trial, never answer for the children he murdered. The United States Air Force faces a massive logistical challenge. They must transport over 900 bodies from Guyana to Dover Air Force Base in Delaware. It takes nearly a week. Many bodies are so badly decomposed in the tropical heat that identification becomes difficult. Some families never recover their loved ones' remains. Others receive the wrong bodies due to identification errors. The survivors face a different nightmare. Only 33 people from Jonestown itself survive. Some hid in the jungle during the massacre. Others were away on errands in Georgetown, the capital. A handful managed to run when the shooting started and survived the jungle long enough for rescue. These survivors carry immense guilt. Why did they survive when their families died? Many struggle with PTSD for decades. Some suffer survivor's guilt so severe they contemplate suicide themselves. The trauma never fully heals. Legal accountability proves limited. Larry Layton, one of the shooters at the airstrip, is the only person ever prosecuted. He's convicted and serves 18 years in federal prison before being paroled in 2002. No one else faces charges. Most of Jones's top lieutenants died at Jonestown. Those who survived scattered, disappearing into obscurity. Congressman Leo Ryan receives recognition as the only U.S. congressman ever killed in the line of duty. Jackie Spear, who survived being shot 5 times at the airstrip, eventually wins election to Ryan's old congressional seat. She serves as a living reminder of Jonestown's impact. Today, Jonestown sits abandoned. The jungle has reclaimed most structures. A few concrete foundations remain. Rusted equipment slowly disappears under vegetation. The Guyanese government largely ignores the site. It's too controversial, too painful. Most locals avoid it. Here are facts about Jonestown most people don't know. First, it should be called the Flavor Aid Massacre, not Kool-Aid. Jones used the cheaper Flavor Aid brand, but Kool-Aid was more famous. So, drinking the Kool-Aid entered our language as a phrase for blind loyalty. Second, Jim Jones was heavily addicted to drugs by 1978. He took massive doses of painkillers, amphetamines, and barbiturates. His final speeches show increasing incoherence. He wasn't just evil. He was psychotic and irrational. Third, several Jonestown basketball players were away at a game in Georgetown when the massacre happened. They survived but lost their entire families. Every person they knew in Jonestown died. Imagine receiving that news. Fourth, the phrase mass suicide itself is controversial among survivors. They argue it should be called mass murder. Using suicide suggests people chose to die, which most did not. The survivors have fought for decades to change how we describe Jonestown. Finally, similar cult massacres have occurred since Jonestown. The Branch Davidians at Waco in 1993. Heaven's Gate in 1997. Jonestown wasn't unique. It was just the largest. The psychological mechanisms Jones exploited, isolation, fear, charismatic authority, sleep deprivation, still work today. So here's the question that haunts everyone who studies Jonestown. Could it happen again? The answer, disturbingly, is yes. Smaller versions already have. The techniques of manipulation and control haven't changed. Only the scale differs. If this video opened your eyes to something you didn't know, hit that like button. Subscribe for more deep dives into dark history. And tell me in the comments what shocked you most about this story. Next time, we're covering Heaven's Gate, another cult that ended in mass death. You'll see disturbing parallels to Jonestown. Remember, those who don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it.